Good evening, good morning, good afternoon. Depends where you are all over the world. Hopefully you're watching us.
Are we not getting naked for this? Sorry. I thought we were all being naked.
Dude,
never mind.
It's early. It's early still. It's early. There's some people watching in Thailand. It's a little over there. Folks, welcome again to Soaring Prophets, your boys on Thursday Night Live. Back and feeling a little rested. It's been sort of a long summer here for the lads. Lots of projects on the go. You guys are going to hear lots of things coming up here in the next few months. We've got lots to tell you. It's been sort of a very busy transition over the last little while. Very cool things coming down the pipe. But it's not Sunday, and we are clothed, as James sort of alluded to. But we've got a very special guest here tonight, Caleb Nelson. And Caleb's kind of this interesting guy. Met him a few minutes ago in the green room. You're gonna see the energy he brings to the situation as we get into this. Very, very confident young man, entrepreneur, family guy, married 5 or 6 years. France has a very special place in his heart. We'll get into that a little bit too. Loves the croissants, and the champagne apparently is problematic at times, but we'll work on that as we go. But folks, again, thank you for joining us. Caleb, why don't you tell us, first of all, tell us who you are, tell us why we got to be naked on Sunday, and then we'll dive into some of the conversation piece around what brought you to what Naked Sunday is and how maybe, you know, a beautiful pop singer inspired some inspirational change in your life and your family situation as it goes.
Wow, there's a lot in there.
There was a lot in there. That felt good though. It felt right. And we're just, you know what? We're just in a naked Sunday state of mind. It's an everyday thing nowadays. I don't just get naked on Sunday anymore. It's just I'm more naked and authentic at all times. But thanks for having me, guys. Thanks for the intro. That was awesome. We're laughing already. I'm loving it. I'm Caleb Nelson, everybody who's listening from wherever you're all at. Thanks for.
We're not sure if he's got pants, but
happy birthday, Sia. We love you.
We got to keep the mystery alive with clothing at all times. I'm thinking about starting to send out robes to my guests that come on the podcast and like very Hugh Hefner style and just like keep the allure alive.
I like that. Yeah, you got a robe there, Montana. I know you got one at home, so
she'll be sending you a picture soon.
Yes, I'll be getting one shortly. Yeah, sorry, pal. We digress.
I listen. This is a judgment-free zone, and I am here for it. So, I love it. I guess who am I? Well, who am I is a powerful question that I like to ask on my podcast. But for practical speaking terms, right now, we'll get into the stories afterwards of who I am and where I came from. But professionally speaking, I do life and performance coaching, and basically I like to believe I help you get closer to the best version of yourself, however that's got to look, and take it from a health and a relationship and a business standpoint. As you mentioned before, I work with a lot of entrepreneurs looking to create that inner peace and create a life that's aligned with the real version of themselves, the authentic version of themselves. And I think that we're, especially in this day and age where we're all craving that authenticity, that's where we need to start operating from, and your life will start to reflect that. So I think maybe I probably answered some of all of those things that you posed out there for me, but
yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. So
I was beating you to it, but your story is pretty exciting because it is in line with mine and with a lot of the people we have. So a lot of people that we have on Soaring Prophets are that story where you hit that point, that moment, that I call it the point of impact. That point where you're like, you're looking at yourself and you're like, I'm not happy. I'm not happy in the place I'm in. I'm not happy in the place I'm not anywhere where I want to be. And so you have that moment where you either go into a negative point and you start drinking, or you start eating, and you start doing all that, which I experienced, or you do the other thing. Where Montana's totally distracted me again. Or you do the other thing where you like look at yourself and you really examine yourself. And like we talked about this on Soaring Prophets, that's why our mottos are, let's heal our mind, body, souls, and money together. And this so lines up on what happened to you. So maybe you could tell us your story from conception to where you are now.
Yeah, we'll start with the Naked Sunday story. So as you mentioned before, family guy. My wife is off somewhere nursing our newborn daughter, who was born on the 8th, which is very exciting. Best role
like
ever. Fresh out.
Oh, dude, I didn't realize that. Amazing. Yeah. Congratulations, Dad. That's awesome. Yeah.
Like
your life will never be the same.
That's it.
It's been wild, man. And I might be one of the weirdest people to say this about like fatherhood, but like it was in a strange way anticlimactic, and I guess it will kind of lead to it.
Yeah.
So let's take it back to the inception of this whole Naked Sunday thing, as you guys asked before we hop on. But so about 5-ish years ago, my wife and I got married. We've been together closer to like 11 or 12 at this point, but we went to France for our honeymoon, and this is what, 2019. And when we came back, for context, everybody should know, like I've owned a couple gyms. This was my second one. This was a wellness center. This one was like truly like a brainchild of mine and my business partner at the time. Massage, chiro, all this stuff. Anyway, came back from France, crushing bottles of champagne and multiple croissants every day. Now, I'm not saying my 2-week vacation did this to me, but I came back roughly 40 pounds overweight, which was the pinnacle and the accelerated version of getting to like my version of rock bottom.
Right.
When you own a fitness facility, you got to look the part. And as much as other people told me like, hey, I could never tell. Even my wife said she couldn't tell when it was in it. Like I could tell, and I felt like garbage.
Yeah.
But deeper than that, and I think this can maybe help with other people to recognize some of the signs and symptoms, like underneath the physical stuff, I was feeling, as much as here's the woman I want to spend the rest of my life. Like she's been the best thing for me. She's walked through the fire with me on so many different things that we could get to if we want to. Couldn't ask for a better partner in life, but I felt like this arm's distance relationship from her. I felt that really in all of even my friendships and everything. And I felt so burnt out and resentful from my business. Had gone through so many evolutions. I had a pretty nasty business fallout with my first business partner, and it just still like mentally and emotionally somewhere tied into that. And it was all symbolized here on my body. I was 40 pounds overweight. My back was killing me. My knees were killing me. I was self-soothing with food and alcohol on the weekend. Like not great. But out of nowhere, and I never thought I would have to thank Christina Aguilera for anything in my life. My wife shows up on some random day of the week. I can't remember which one. She just goes, so Christina Aguilera and her husband do this thing called Naked Sunday. And I'm like, yo, sign me up, as we were talking about before. Because what newly married man in his right mind would say no to some naked time with his new bride? So boom.
Yeah, that seems like a win-win-win.
Yeah.
Like that's a no-brainer. Like we're all in. Yeah.
This is like every dude's dream. Like you want to schedule this and you want a day? Like, let's go.
Yeah.
So we get to the day, as most men would like kind of anticipate here, like, okay, bloated, uncomfortable, you know?
Yeah.
Don't worry. At some point, she later joins in on this, and I think that was part of the healthier stuff of all the things to come along. Yeah. But she backs out, committed to my cause. Like I want to make this a thing. I go through with it, and so there I go. I decided to spend a full day butt ass naked on my couch. I promise it's been cleaned many times over. So if anybody ever comes over and sits on our couch, we're good. It's all kosher, guys. Lay down blankets. We're fine. Yeah. And as I was saying before to you guys, take it back, I don't know, 10-ish years, maybe a little longer. I was very much into like competitive CrossFit and all those kinds of things. And at that point in my life, I remember selling a gym membership so much so that my first business partner, that we're friends again, did a video, called me up one day randomly to present to his audience, like, tell me the strangest sale we've ever done together. And I go, we sold a membership butt naked sitting next to each other in a hot tub on some random Tuesday. And I'm like, that was it. Yeah. There I was, not caring, feeling that kind of way about myself. And here I was in my own home, writhing with like the skin crawling feeling and uncomfortable just being in my own home.
Sure.
And it's just my wife. Like we've been intimate before at this point. So here we are. And like I can't handle it. And all these nasty thoughts. I'm just looking at myself. I'm comparing myself to my old version of this. I've accomplished that thing and that thing and that thing, whatever. And then there's this like little voice that came through, and I don't know why I asked myself, like, why do you love yourself? Right. And boom, like it hit me so hard. And as I said before, like the answer that came back was like, not only do I not know why, but I hate myself.
Right.
And it was such an important moment. And I don't know what happened after that, but for some reason I looked over at my wife. She was doing some clerical work on her computer, getting ready for some, I don't know, something that you're preparing for the next school year. I don't know. Because she was a teacher at the time. And I just looked at her and go, well, she loves me. And she's been with me through all the stuff in all states of physical fitness, in all elements of my business, whether it was, I was living with my clients because I was so broke, I couldn't afford anything. And this and that, like all of it. And she's still with me. So she must love me for something other than this meat suit. Huh. Why does she love me? And it was the first time I really took a step outside of myself and realized, like, wow, I have worth and value beyond the labels, the titles, the things I just strive for. The title of, oh, I was a business owner, or I could have 6-pack abs, or I could be this type of athlete, or I could be that type of intelligent, whatever the thing was.
Yeah.
And from that, it opened this new door of how I could start to approach myself with, like, it was almost like the idea of what we think alcohol is going to do for us. It's going to take the edge off. It's going to sober me from that 100% bent out of shape to like 80%. Like, okay, I can breathe a little bit.
Yeah.
But this was a spiritual, intrinsic sobering. And then I could take a more honest look at my life and go, well, duh. Like, look at how you're behaving. Let's look at the past week. Okay, so on Tuesday, you were stressed out of your mind and you crushed a sleeve of Oreos. Awesome, bro.
Yeah.
What could you do next time?
Right.
Oh, I could have half a sleeve of Oreos. Like, we're talking beginner basics.
Harm reduction. We jumped right into harm reduction. Yeah.
We're starting like baby steps here. And I've got degrees and I got all these certifications and all this stuff. I know all the things. And I finally gave myself this permission to stop having to rush this process of getting to know myself beyond what I could, hang on the door front and say, like, I do this or I am that, to essentially to impress people. And I look at that moment now, and it was like, that was my burnout moment. It was the culmination of all these things, of carrying all these burdens of looking for external validation. And this is the first time I flipped that. And it started this whole journey of now looking at my core values and saying, well, how do I live in alignment with that? How do I build a life around that? And slowly but surely, where am I going to spend my time? What are the habits I'm going to engage in? Who are the people I'm going to spend my time with? What's the types of relationships, the types of conversations I want to surround myself with? And it took me on this beautiful, dare I call it, spiritual journey of more understanding myself, and then seeing that manifest itself into external success, not least of which in losing the weight, building deeper, more meaningful relationships, changing the nature of my work. Because at that time it was just all surface level. Like, great, I can help you look better naked.
Right.
But there's this inside thing that I know I'm here to, I was put on this planet to do this thing. I started to lean into that. And that's where you find me now. Like, that's what Naked Sunday became. And it is truly, how do you live authentically? Not by the labels that the world gives you, but by the internal values that allow you to show up as you are everywhere you go.
Right.
You touched on so many. Sorry, Pat.
You're going again, eh? You're going again.
This is my thing.
Again.
So you touched on so many things that align with me, and I don't care, Pat. You just sit back, relax.
You control the camera.
I control everything. No, but you touched on so many important things. But so, like, I was a very heavy man. I've lost some weight. And part of my problem was I hated myself, and it affects every relationship you have. One, if you're a drinker or you smoke weed or you're an eater, those are the people you hang around with. And it turns into this circle of, well, it's okay, they're doing it. He's fat. I'm not as fat as that guy. And so you start building this kind of group that aligns with you, but not in a well way. But the other thing that you touched on was I spent as little time in the mirror as possible because I didn't like the way I looked. I hated the way I looked. I hated myself. I hated a lot of things about me. So when I was on my way to recovery, I would come out of the shower and I would stand in front of the mirror and I would point out things to my brain that were great. You have amazing shoulders. Your arms are getting stronger now. Look at those thighs from running. And ignoring the negative stuff that was there. I could see it. like I still see it. It's still on me, but it was starting to accept the fact that, you know, you don't have to look at the negative every day. If you start your day and, you know, your car breaks down and, you know, about 10% of your day is negative. It really is. If you look at your whole day, about 10% is negative. If you allow that to be your whole day, then it will be your whole day. If you can sit back and go, yeah, but I went for a 5K run, or I didn't crush a bag of Oreos when I was upset today after my car broke down. You have this pivotal moment where you just start generating that positivity, and then you start drawing, because you start liking yourself, you start becoming a more positive person, you start like an outward positive mindset. You start, people will say to you negative things and you will respond positively to them. And the people that are negative kind of move out of the way, and the people who are positive kind of come into your life. And, you know, very much Pat and I have become really
I was
good
just going to
friends.
say, I'm like, you get yourself a Pat and you find a fucking Caleb, and we figure something out, and it works out.
Figure
great.
something out.
And James, now he
go.
looks in the mirror and he likes what he sees.
Yeah. So
Sorry for
on
interrupting.
your journey, could you please not? Like, what do you think this is? A talk show?
I know.
It's the James Show.
Right. I'm just
so
here.
on your self-discovery road, how did you start loving yourself, like externally and internally?
Well, and what did the neighbor say with the lawnmower on Sunday afternoon? And I know that this didn't just become a Sunday thing, but like, I got neighbors. I'm not a bad looking guy, but I know if I'm out there riding the lawnmower naked as shit, they're going to be like, how did we get here, Pat? How did we get to this?
We stayed inside. It was part of the agreement. Like, hey, we're staying inside.
Contract work.
We're shutting yeah. We're shutting out the world.
Right.
And you know, I think I heard this phrase the other day at some event I was attending, some virtual event I was attending. I really like it. You got to make space to make space. And I realized for so long I had just been running from the thoughts in my head, the guilt, the shame, the expectations, the fears, all the stuff in the past. And don't get me wrong, I'd done some, like, I'd gone to some counseling, I'd gone to some other things in my past and had some coaches, but this was different. This was not everybody else. This was not me needing somebody else. This was me talking to my version of God. And I think that was the first time I gave myself permission to do that. I mentioned to you both before we hopped on here, like, I did grow up in a cult. And one of the central premises, ironically, I just had a conversation with my sister, which felt like a life coming full circle moment right before I came onto this podcast with you guys. The church, I don't know if you guys ever heard of the Moonies or the Unification Church. So that's where I grew up. Yeah. Okay. So for anybody who doesn't know, like, the 30-second overview that has impacted me, they're big in like 70s, 80s. They were known for mass weddings. My parents were married in Madison Square Garden. So they're in the Guinness Book of World Record for largest mass wedding, which is kind of wild. But they also had arranged marriages. And I was destined to have an arranged marriage. And the way I describe this to my sister is that in my life, when I saw that fully translate into how it impacted me, is that I was to receive, essentially to be worthy of receiving essentially the ultimate form of love in but I believe in a marital partner to grow a life together. Right. It was on somebody else's terms. It was on somebody else's dime, on when they told me I was allowed to have that. And not only that, I was left out of the conversation. This is the first time it was about, how do I receive love? How do I go through this? What do I care about? Because everything I'd been doing was to try to impress my parents, to try to impress women that for external reasons, to impress clients, to impress everybody. Right. So first getting clear on that, as you're asking before about the journey here, was like, where did this all come from? What am I dealing with here? And I realized I was harboring a lot more resentment than I was even aware of. I was angry at my first business partner for a fallout we had. I was angry at everyone and everything. Now knows everything was like, F all you, I'm going to show you, every client that left, every this and that. Yeah. So I had to confront some of that stuff, because I definitely didn't act in alignment when all those things closed, because I struggled with abandonment, crazy. But the general premise was just looking at my time and looking at my like the time on my calendar was like, this is a reflection of how you're spending your life. This is you. This is who you are. And you could see it right here. And if you're not lit up to go live your day, the rest of your day, like you mentioned before, if you're just like, I'm going to focus on the 10% that sucks, well, duh. And it's going to perpetuate itself. So for me, it became about like, how can I bring more joy into this? I started walking. And when I used to look at walking, it's like, that's all you're going to do for exercise, Caleb. Like, you're not going to lose, like, get in super great shape. They had a park right behind our house that I started walking in to just walk my dog because my knees were
pants on.
And all of a sudden, like, this became this beautiful journey. Like, I was walking my path metaphysically and realistically at the same time. How do I just enjoy being in my life? And those were the things. And it became the same thing. Like, okay, every week was a check-in with myself. Look in the mirror, face what you don't like, deal with it. What's the first small step? And the way I talk about, especially when we get to things like habits, I call it winning on your worst day. Instead of what everybody tries to do, I'll use fitness as an example right now. You go to most trainers, you go to most coaches, whatever you want to call it. It's like, here's a laundry list of 12 things, the perfect program, the perfect meal plan, the perfect, and it looks great on paper in theory. But the problem is, if you are so far removed from that excellence, you're going to try to do that day one. It's so exhausting because you haven't learned how to integrate it into your life. You do it, maybe you suffer through it. You're not perfect, so you're beating yourself up the first day. The second day, you're stressing yourself out again. You're so burnt out by just trying to do this for the first few days that you give up, and then all of a sudden, like, you just give up on it altogether. And like, of course, the cycle started all over together.
Right.
As opposed to, because the problem there is like, you're trying to live up to somebody else's expectation. If I don't do this right now, I'm going to suck at life.
Right.
Yeah. Switching it to, I'm going to win on my worst day. How can I have a plan for when I'm hungover from the night before, pants around my ankles, stub my toe on the side of the bed, my kid's crying, my client canceled, whatever. Like, the rain is pouring and it sucks. Yeah. On that day, how can I show up for myself? So I always win. Right. Theoretically, your worst day is not every day. So you're going to stack these things over and over and over again. It just flips all of this because you're just accepting, you know what, I'm going on a human experience here and I want to master myself.
That's cool.
That changed the way I approached just giving myself the habits. Go figure, I was literally telling myself all the things I ever told any of my clients, like, be nice to yourself. Like, start small. It's okay. Do the little things.
Do you find that's harder though? Because again, like, you're taking it from a professional perspective as well, right? So this, and I'm gonna use the word jargon for this, right? Is that the jargon, the sentences, the motivating lines, and then when you impact it in yourself, it's hard. It's that look in the mirror, pull the curtain back, and be like, yeah, shit. Like, I know how to say it all. I know how to direct people to do it, but yeah, it's raining. The kid's crying. Bump my toe. All of these situations that you're discussing. How do you make sure that you're able to walk the walk versus just talk the proverbial talk?
The biggest change was I gave myself permission to have a time to check in. Like, I stopped filling my schedule. That's where the whole time element became a thing. Right. Like, Sunday, nothing went on the schedule. It was, we're sitting here. When she finally joined in, we would talk. Yeah. But it was like, just deal with it. You want to rush to go do something right now? You could be working on something. You could be creating something. You could be selling something, like, which everybody tells you to do. And don't get me wrong, you got to do some work. I'm not saying you don't.
Yeah.
But I did that route, and I climbed the mountain, and then it crashed, and I climbed the mountain again, and it crashed, and I realized like that never solved the problem. So that piece there, to just put buffers in my life to come back to this sober internal state, I call it, like, there's like drunk, and then there's love drunk. That's both the same thing. Like, you're in an elevated state or an inebriated state, and making decisions from that place, you're not thinking logically. Not that it's bad or good. It's just like, it's just not logical. And you need to like also check in with like a sober mind. And most people are just not patient enough to do that. And I was rushing to do those things. So that was the first part. The other part that I started to realize is that the reason why I was starting to lean on food and alcohol as just like my scapegoat at that time was because I just wasn't happy in these other areas of my life. I don't know how much, if you guys ever read the book, The Big Leap, but I was reminded of it recently. And there's these 4 different levels. There's zone of incompetence, zone of competence, zone of excellence, and then zone of genius.
Okay.
I was great. Zone of excellence. I was great at fitness. I was awesome at it. Awesome. I could just like coach a class in my sleep and like not think twice about it.
Right.
It was boring.
Right.
Yeah.
And I had felt this calling, like, I am here to do something more. I can go deeper. I can ask questions of people and people will just tell me stuff. I don't know why, but I just do it and it lights my world up when every now and then I do it.
Yeah. I
wasn't secure enough within myself. So what I realized is those were all signs and symptoms of burnout. In the book, The Big Leap by Gay Hendricks, he calls it the upper limit problem. And those are the physical manifestations that happen, but also relational problems happen. Also business problems happen. They're all these global signs of I've hit, that I've heard from another mentor once, they called the ceiling of complexity. I had figured out this level.
Right.
Clearly, I'm just too scared to go to the next level. So I'm just putting obstacles in my way, or the universe is putting obstacles in my way to just keep getting so frustrated until I decide, you know what? What's the worst that happened? Just go face yourself.
Right.
So that became like that really interesting thing. Like I was not fully pursuing my purpose. And because of that misalignment there, I didn't know how to organize my life behind it. And before you can actually, I wasn't even clear on what my purpose was. I just knew there was something different. And you talk, I know the title is like Burnout to Breakthrough. The breakthrough is like your purpose is what I call an emergent property. It's not something I just define my purpose today. It shows up.
Cool. Yeah.
And which is a little contrary from what and mind you, it was one of the TED Talks that like blew my mind. It was Simon Sinek's Start With Why. Like, start with why. What's your why? What's your purpose, essentially? Right. When you're in this place of like, I don't know where I'm at, I'm going crazy, and many people even call it probably like a midlife crisis. Like, what's the point? You first need to actually figure out who you are. Sure. That was the problem. I had all these roles. I had all these titles. It was every single label I had attached to myself. And it's almost like I'm juggling all these different balls, or just like, those are the labels. Now there's just too many. And I'm trying to add another one. The other thing I should have mentioned there was like, at that moment, the next natural thought after you get married is, well, I want to be a father, or am I going to have kids? And I knew I wanted that. Yeah. And the very hard truth at that moment was I was not prepared to the standard that was important to me.
Right.
Yes. And that's where getting clear on, and you asked the greatest question before, like, who am I, was the hardest question for me to answer. Mm-hmm. And I say this because it's been haunting. It did haunt me ever since middle school, when I think it was 6th or 7th grade English teacher, he went up to the board and he wrote, "Who are you?" on the board, leaned up on his desk, pointed and goes, "So?" I kind of looked at the class. I'm like, I'm still talking about it, 20 some odd years later. Yeah. And it just changed the way I thought about the world. Right. Because how do we answer that question of who am I? Yeah. Your entire world is constructed off of your identity. We don't know that. We don't realize that. Yeah.
So Caleb, if I can just jump in for a second, because again, there's so much to unpack there, but like you were saying, coming from the Mooney situation, and I don't know a lot about it as a group, but how did that feed into sort of and I'm going to call it an identity crisis. You can call it what you want. That's sort of what it feels like from what you're explaining. How did that piece come together? Like, it's you call it a cult, so I'm guessing you're no longer a part of the Muni's community. No. What does that look like? What did that break look like? Why did you break? How did that come? And then do you think that there's a piece there that has led to this sort of identity? This was a group of people, my family was tied to this, and then that's led to me like, I've got to be super successful. I have to be driven. I have to succeed. I have to be this winner. I have to be all the labels that you're talking about. How does that sort of peg into it?
You hit the nail on the head with the I have to be.
Right.
This is telling me who I have to be, why I have to be, when I have to be, how, like all of that. It's putting me in a box. Go figure, I was attracted to the entrepreneurial world because every entrepreneur is just trying to blow up the box. Think outside the box. So of course that was attracted to me because I don't have to have a label on myself. I can call myself whatever I want today.
Right.
that it was the restrictive nature. And go figure, as with all great stories, I did leave the church when I was 17. It started with, there was a girl.
Right.
I wanted to date a girl. I wasn't allowed to.
Right.
I sat my parents down. I even had my mom on the podcast, which when she finally told me her perspective on what happened there, I was like, you should have told me that then. But I sat them down straight up, was like, listen, I don't agree with this. I want to be respectful of it. I'm telling you my position on this.
Right.
And I'm not, and there's this girl. I didn't even know if this girl liked me. I didn't know any of that stuff. Like I could not talk to people. Like, this is so far removed from the persona that you would see as a 17-year-old Caleb Nelson. Like,
right.
I could talk about sports and school. To see me talk to a girl was, I mean, yeah, there's high school awkwardness, and then there's that kind of awkwardness. Like
Caleb Nelson at 17. Yeah.
Yeah. Like, haven't come into my own in any way, shape, or form.
I love it.
And we had a fallout with my parents. And thankfully, like, and part of my journey with Naked Sunday was like, I went around and then I made peace with my family. I went
That's
around
amazing.
and I called it a reconciliation tour we did with a bunch of friends that I had either hurt or been, or we had separations or whatnot. I coached my mom. Like, she lost 40 pounds herself. Like, it had nothing to do with the health, with the weight. It was everything else we needed to deal with.
Right.
But I went the rest of my life to try to prove I can find my own thing. But the weird part is, and this is actually ironically what a lot of entrepreneurs do, we reject one box, but we're so looking for security again, we go find another box.
Yeah.
So I went from cult box to, I found CrossFit.
Fitness box. Yeah. Yeah.
And I was in early. I was like, what, circa 2008. So like my buddy.
Oh yeah. Like the first group. Yeah. No, that's early for sure.
So in it, and I was like, oh, great. Like, I can be an athlete again. I can do all this stuff. I lost a bunch of college, the freshman, whatever it was, 20, 30, 40 pounds, whatever I did.
Right.
And like, here's my new identity. Oddly enough, they call them boxes. I like fit in a box again, and I can be the man in the box. And then there was the natural, like, I can go from great athlete to like, I can have the Barbie girlfriend who's the CrossFit goddess. And then I could then I could own my own gym. And it was just like one new thing of like, I knew theoretically what the next step was, but I would climb that ladder and it was so like empty. I would have it. It was that fleeting joy.
Yeah.
Yes. It was not like, it was always this emptiness, anxious internal feeling.
And that is it's funny you call it that, because it is such an entrepreneurial endeavor. I know so many guys. I'm multi-time entrepreneur, ran different businesses over the years, finance, that sort of stuff. And there is nobody at all, if they're being honest with you, that hasn't had that endeavor. Because you get it started and you're like, if I can just get to this, that'll be it. I'll have made it. And then you get there and you're looking around and you're like, fuck, I'm nowhere near where I thought I was. Like, that was such an idiotic, insecure idea of what success was going to be. And then you're like, okay, next goal. And you're climbing again and you hit that next goal, like real estate, right? I've got a few properties and that sort of deal. If I can just hit, 5 properties, 5 multifamily units, right? I'm like, that'll be great. My family security. And then it's like, you're there and you're looking around and you're going, well, like, I live comfortably. My family doesn't want for really anything, but I've got more problems than I had when I started the morning, right? Like the toilet's leaking. They call me. What? Right. So you start hitting these things. And I think it takes a special personality to do that and then continue to ratchet up. I got a 15-year-old daughter, just turned 15 over the summer here. Excellent athlete, very good student. I'm very proud of my daughter. Profiteers out there, I'm digressing, but I'm with her and I'm pushing her in the same way that I was pushed. And I catch myself every once in a while. And I'm like, she's won championships. She's won provincials. She's pretty accomplished. We're in Canada. She's a pretty accomplished girl. And I'm like, how did you feel about today? Because I want her to own that as opposed to like, how'd I do, dad? Right? Like, I don't want that external all the time. Because I'm telling you, as an entrepreneur, and I do sort of see that as maybe a potential future for her, I don't want her just firing the external all the time, needing that gratification. As a dad, that usually comes from asshole guys. I don't want that, right? No. So I'm looking at all these things as how can I set her up for these internal milestones, these internal things. My faith is a big thing for myself and my family. We check in on ourselves, and it's sort of like, where do you find yourself in that? Are you good with yourself? Are you good with God? How do you sleep at night? You're good? Okay, well, that's good. But it's hard. And then you've pivoted that into helping other people, and not necessarily alone through the physical aspect, but in through a metaphysical aspect. Like, how are they taking that next step? Maybe tell us a little bit about that journey in pivoting into, life coaching. You haven't really nailed down exactly what you call that per se. Is it life coaching? What is that? But you have this really interesting plan that takes that in, where we can hit those things, but we don't have to always be looking for Caleb Nelson to tell you, hey, that a boy. What do you do from the inside? How do you do that?
I want to really commend you first on what you just said, that when I look back at my relationship with my parents, the only thing they missed out on was just asking me my thoughts on it. That was it.
Yeah.
Everything was great. Intentions were awesome. I understand where it comes from.
Right.
If I was included in the conversation and really challenged to think about, well, what do you really want?
Yeah.
And take it a step further. I wasn't taught how to think my natural internal self because of whatever reason I like to push and I feel driven. But funny enough, with a lot of, I told this kind of like as a semi joke, because I don't do well with people who can't laugh at themselves.
You're in good company. We're pretty funny.
I often laugh at Pat. Oh wait, that's not what you meant.
Yeah.
I've struggled to put a title on like what it is I do. And somebody asked me a year ago what I did just off the cuff. I was just like, you know what? I do vague shit. And I was like, that was it. I was like, I'm going to, like, functionally speaking, like, I just sit in a room. I ask you some questions. And what you just said before is like, my real goal is to get you to stop thinking about what I'm trying to tell you. What I've actually learned is that everybody who comes to me already knows everything to do. They got all the answers.
Yes.
Always.
Yeah.
They might not. The problem is they don't know how to see the big picture and then integrate it piece by piece without rushing. They don't know how to leave space. They don't know how to give themselves permission. I mean, the real talk
I find
is like,
quite often, sorry, I don't mean to interrupt, but I find quite often is that they do see that big picture. They see all the things that they can do, all the things they can change, and then they get overwhelmed because I have to do all of these things, and they just can't realize that it's just a domino. Like, I have this 7 video thing that I made, and it's all about that. It's all about, all you have to do is flick that first domino. Make your bed every morning. That's it. Just make your bed every morning. And I'm going to tell you, that's going to change your life. You do not have to do, like you said, the 12-hour workout every day. That's not what it's about. You will get there. Like, I'm a marathon runner now, but I started with making my bed. I'm sorry to interrupt, but I just thought that's
I love
so
it.
true.
Everything you're saying there is so on point. It's so on brand with everything I talk about. I have a little acronym for what I call the Naked Sunday method. It's happiness starts at home. And H stands for honesty. Stare in the mirror. What's out of alignment?
Yeah.
I developed what I call the anti-value method, because I've done a million value exercises, and all of them were predicated on what somebody else's words. And I was just trying to fill it out to impress what I think somebody else would think about it if I said that.
That's
anti-value was a lot about like, what do I hate? And then what's the opposite of that? And then, where am I not living up to that in my own life? So it was, how is it my bank account? How is it my schedule? Is it my relationships? What doesn't line up with that? Cool. How do I reorganize my life? That's organization phases. And I look at what I call the nexus of happiness. There's 3 elements. There's self-care. So that'd be more like the body, but mentally, physically, emotionally, spiritually, those practices. There's the relationships, what I call quality connections, who are the friends, the family, the people that you're surrounding your life with. How do they line up? And then your work, I call it your meaningful work, which really was like a zone of genius, the things that inspire you, that you value yourself appropriately. How do you put that on your schedule? Because like I said before, how do you put it on your schedule? Most people, as you said before, James, people get so overwhelmed because they just make themselves busy, but they're not productive.
100%.
They're doing a bunch of things that don't matter because they just want to feel like they're doing something, but they're just doing the hamster wheel thing every day.
Yes.
So by organizing their life and then leaving space to transition from one thing to the next, I can't tell you how many times I've joked to people about that. Like, why are you drag racing your minivan? Like, that's not what this is designed for. Okay. I work with a lot of moms. I work with a lot of female entrepreneurs. And like that one gets them every time.
Yeah. I love that. No, because I have been at that light, brother. I'm telling you. And she's got the Stanley
Starbucks.
going. She's got the phone on the ear, and the light goes green, and it's just taillights. That's all you get is taillights as they're flying by you.
Yeah.
What could you be going to right now? What could you be doing right now?
Yeah.
I love it.
By them finally learning how to put breathing room. Yeah, like maybe you don't sign the kids up for 75 things and then tag on PTA for like who are you trying to impress? You're just trying to impress other moms, not your kids. Why don't you just go ask your kids why they love you? And they're going to give you a very simple response on how to show up for them. Yeah. For the record, 99% of everything I talk about is how your relationships at home, not least with your spouse, but even with your kids. Like when you realize getting the validation from the people you say you actually care about is so simple compared to what you've been trying to do, because nobody ever asks them about like their love languages and how they receive love. They're just doing a bunch of extra stuff, working themselves to the bone to do things that ultimately actually only impress people that they don't care about, that also don't care about you.
Yeah.
It's to keep it up with the Joneses. And I've talked about it a lot. So everyone, Caleb, I'm sure you've watched all the episodes. I've got a couple finance shows that we do on Soaring Prophets as well, but I talk a lot about sort of living within your means and the happiness that sort of comes along with that. Is that, like I talked about earlier, I've got real estate properties, been financially successful for a long time. And I look at my buddies who aren't, and they drive a way nicer truck than I do. Yes. And they got a way nicer boat than I do. Right. And they got all these things. And I'm like, I don't know how you sleep at night. And then you hear 5 and 6 years down the road is that, me and the missus are breaking up. It's not working. Right. And I go, you stupid fucking idiot. Like this was 10 years in the making. You were dead. You didn't know to lay down. Yeah. And they set themselves up to compete with their friends, their buddies, the guys who, we've been in the trenches together since high school, football, look, whatever sport. I'd do anything for you. I'd kill somebody for you and help you hide the body. But you think you got to drive the $130,000 pimped out truck to impress? Dude, get there in the jalopy. I just love you. Be proud of who you are. Yeah. But it's this societal expectation. And I'm glad you speak about that as a coach. Because
it's what we were told success is, though, daily.
100%. But there's so many coaches that are like, get the Lambo.
Yep.
Oh, you don't need the fucking Lambo. You happy with your wife? You happy with your family? Yeah. I'd be cool without the Lambo. I don't need the Lambo.
Well, that's definitely from like my fitness background. It was like, well, why do you want to lose the weight? It's not because, like, you want to look better in the mirror, sure, but what's the thing that's wifey walking back that you got only know what?
I was just waving to her. She didn't see me.
For the record, she listens to none of the podcasts I'm ever on or my own because she's like, I get that shit
all day.
Repeat. This doesn't turn off. This doesn't turn off.
Yeah, my kids don't listen to it either. They have to listen to me when I talk to them. So they've never watched the podcast.
30 years of it.
So that they don't people. Let's go back to what I talked about with the cult. Nobody asked me what success was. Nobody sat down and said, what do you really want for yourself?
Yeah.
And it's because it's scary because you don't know sometimes how to hold space for that. And when you do that, you start to open this whole bag of worms that's just like, or can of worms, whatever the expression is. But as we kind of flow through this, like you start with something very simple. And I talked about the win on the worst day. The next step of the phase is I call it maturation. What is maturation? To mature is to master things. You stop rushing through your life. You start embracing your life. That's how you get good at things. If you enjoy it. And then E is just endurance, like keep doing it over and over again and learn to play.
Right.
You do those things. You have to, the most important thing I keep saying is like the reason why I walked away from like explicitly fitness is because people think it's a weight loss problem. People think it's a food and exercise problem. It is not. That's the final, that's like literally the final thing you just talked about with the truck. The problem is you're not inspired in your life, but you're in such a haze right now with the schedule and the overwhelm and the burnout cycle and the this and the that and the expectations of everybody. You've lost sight of where you want to go. You also completely lost sight of who you are under all of your success, which is a strange thing to tell people. Like Your problem is a problem of abundance and success, but you don't feel that way.
Yeah.
So to get somebody back to that, I would call that your spiritual fitness. That's one of the things. I have these 3 pillars, like spiritual fitness, physical fitness, and mental fitness. Like your mental fitness is a lot about like, where's your attention going?
Yeah.
You're probably giving your attention to things that don't matter. Your physical fitness, well, yeah, your body's got to be good enough to do the things if you want to live long enough to fully live out your legacy. But the spiritual fitness, that's your values, that's your vision, your mission. That's thinking about your death. That's thinking about life beyond you, what you're leaving behind. And that's scary to do because you're starting to ask yourself, like, well, if I'm really saying this is not about me, am I really living in alignment with that right now? I have to think beyond the next week, the next month, the next year, the next 5 years. I have to think generationally. I have to think about my kids.
Yes.
And I start to realize most people are not, they say they're doing everything for their kids, but they're not.
100%.
They're doing it to reaffirm their belief about themselves for them friends to like, as opposed to like, what's your job as a parent?
Yeah.
Your job as a parent is to set your child free so they can become a productive member of society. You are supposed to cut the cord willingly, and I wouldn't say urgently. Like that's the goal. That is powerful.
Yeah.
Then in entrepreneurship, I think the same thing goes. Like you're not trying to attract clients to just make money. You're holding space for others to grow, for them to go live abundantly without you. And that's the difference in the cult mindset. Like, and I definitely had created my own cult as a business owner. I was like, I want everybody to need me. It's just gonna be food and exercise. You need to show up to my gym every single day, and then you're gonna be happy. Nope. Yep. That's why I hit the roadblock with all of them. I wasn't setting them free because I needed to feel validated. Like, look at all the people in my gym.
Right.
When I walked away from that, how do I get you back in touch with your purpose? Well, I have to get you back in touch first with yourself. Yeah. And when you keep that clarity, when you keep using, I think of values as like the machete that's chopping through the woods, that's clearing the space. All of a sudden, the emergent property I talked about, purpose, reveals itself. And I still remember, like, when I came up with my vision and mission statement, I was just rolling around my garage doing a workout, just slowly, whatever. And it's like, oh, that's what it is. World inner peace. That's what I want to leave behind.
Sure.
How do I want to do it? Generational health.
Yeah.
Okay. What does that mean? Obviously, I can describe it in these terms. As you say, like, well, how do you do this stuff professionally? Well, professionally, I just sit there and I ask some questions and I let you be yourself and practice with me. And like, let's talk about your marriage. Let's talk about your friendships. Let's talk about your health. Let's talk about your business. Because if those things don't reflect who you are, you're going to destroy it because you're going to be at odds end with it at all times. And that's why you see the cycle like repeat itself. So
in generational,
I think that's so important. Sorry, I think that's so important, that point of if you're a motivational speaker or if you're a gym coach, it's not about them coming to you every day. You're trying to build something. The most successful are trying to build that eventually you're not going to come here anymore. I don't want you to come here. And it's very important with kids. Like I remember there was a point that I started arguing with my wife. I think it was around grade 9 that I'm like, no, we're not doing that for them. They have to do that. They have to go into the teacher and tell them, I don't agree with this mark, or they have to go and do whatever. And I started making that, and she struggled with it. And I get why she struggled. She wanted to protect them, make them safe. But I want my kids to be able to not be afraid to make a phone call, which is a problem right now for some children, especially of the 19 to 26 age, right?
Well, this whole generation, these COVID kids.
Yeah. So it was so important. But the other thing that a lot of coaches that I've experienced, psychologists, all of that, is they pretend to listen. They listen and then they go, what you need is this. But they don't listen and go, what do you think you need? Because like you said, everyone knows the answer. And me telling you the answer is not going to help you. You have to come up with it. Is that kind of what you're doing?
Yeah. I mean, sometimes I provide tools and tactics, like especially communication skills. Like, and this is, I toot his horn, or I sing his praises. I give all my clients his book, Chris Voss's Never Split the Difference. That changed my marriage, let alone my coaching practice.
Yeah. Like,
how do we speak with the people that we want to speak with? How do I want to receive love? How do I talk about those things? Yeah. So those are the things. And I will suggest homework assignments if they're needing a little bit of like, let me like, I see where this is going. Maybe you haven't learned a specific tactic, but in the by and large, it's like, I'm going to tell you some stuff that might come up. Hey, by the way, like, yeah, you're growing. By the way, that's going to be scary for your partner, your husband or your wife. That's going to be scary. Just so you know, they're going to react to that. Like, we're going to get out ahead of it this way. Look for that. Yeah. It's more in the beginning. Yeah, we got to clear the dust a little bit, and everybody comes to me at a different stage. So, like, if anybody's feeling like weird physical signs and symptoms that just don't seem to go away, or like mental signs and symptoms, or just malaise in their job, those are all the warning signs. The sooner you do something about it, this is called preventative health, guys, not just physical, but mental, emotional, spiritual health. The less chaos. Like, we won't have to pull you from like out of the gutter.
Right.
Yes.
First we got to clear the thing. So we need to get you from this burnout, like low energy state to like balance. How do we put some equilibrium, put some space where you can operate with clarity? But then we can start moving and start to look further down the path. You can see a month down the line. We can see a year down the line. We can start asking these different questions. We can create programs within your business that matter, where you feel more in alignment. But yeah, like, it is like, what do you want? Because if I'm telling you what you should want, it's not even your idea.
Yeah, you're missing the point.
Yeah,
I'm missing the whole point. And once I took it out of that, and don't get me wrong, like, sure, I'm going to use motivational interviewing and all these other tactics that you learn along the way to get you there. Sure. Because I mean, the saddest thing is like, sometimes when people come to me, it's like they stopped believing in themselves.
Right.
Yes. So you know what? I am going to hype you up.
Yeah.
I'm going to see some of the things, and I'm going to paint a quick picture to be like, that sounds like a great idea. Yeah. Let's think about that. Like, let's put it on the back burner. But like, because they might have lost that spark, even though like after a few minutes they could give me that. Like, let's champion that. Like, keep that front of mind. Like, let's get out of this dark space. Yeah. Sure. But at the end of the day, like, that's all we're really saying. Like, what do you want? And then what do you need from support from me? Sometimes it's just like, I need to show up, talk to you, go for a walk. Yeah. That's it.
Caleb, I think it's super cool what you're doing. You're a super interesting guy. You're the type of guy that you could sit down and have a beer with, talk through some of the issues. And I think you're the type of guy, you just have that personality that you can open up with, you can explain complex problems with. And I think that there's so many coaches out there, and I'm going to be very honest and very frank. We've had people that we've done interviews that have never hit TV. Like, we've never aired them with certain coaches, because some of the stuff is just such bullshit. Yeah. Right. There's like, you give me something to work with, I'll bite my teeth into it and we'll run with it. But you come with it from such an interesting perspective. You've done it from the physical aspect. So you understand what people are, how to get them to that personal best, right? Physically. But you and I and James, we both know that 5 pounds on your deadlift doesn't matter. But in your mind, that mentality, I can't push that 5. I can't get to 355. Well, what 350 you did? Like, you're telling me that 5 pounds is the straw? No. We'll get your mind, body, and soul right. Sorry for stealing your tagline there.
Stealing.
That's right.
Go for it.
But Caleb, I love it. I want to thank you, man. We're about that time. I want to thank you so much for joining us. Like I say, you come with such a perspective, and I think a very cool thing is that now that you're a new dad, it'll be interesting as you bring that into your journey as well, right? When you're dealing with clients and now that newfound adaptation, because your life's going to change, man. I think you know it. You don't know yet. It's going to be a super cool thing. And as a girl dad, I know that my world was absolutely, totally rocked differently. It's just that little hand when they reach out and grab you and you're like, fuck. Yeah. You got me. Right? I love it. Caleb, it was an absolute pleasure tonight, man. From me, profiteers out there. Again, some very cool stuff coming on the pipe. We've got lots of stories to tell you. It's been a bit of an interesting summer, wild summer from us. But we love you. We appreciate you. Again, like, subscribe, and share. Send it to somebody that could definitely sit down and learn something from a guy like Caleb. Honest guy. I appreciate where he's coming from. From me, folks, let's make some money together.
Yeah, Caleb, I love everything you say. Everything you're saying is really in line with the journey that I had, from the fact that I was convinced if I lost 150 pounds, my life would be perfect. Everything would be great. My marriage would be fixed. None of that was true, because I hated myself inside and I had to do that internal work, which is so important. And the way that you describe it, the way that you lay it out, I could see someone coming to you and being guided by you in such a way that it's not controlling, it's helpful, and doing those small things to change your life and making it like, there's so many people out there that talk, motivational speakers, saying you have to work, you have to do this, well, it's not all about that. It's about getting your life right, your home right. Like, there were times when I didn't even want to come home. I'd sit in the driveway. There's so many people out there right now that are sitting in their driveway, just I can't go in. Well, that's an awful thing to do. It is so easy to fix the things, especially when they are the people that you love. You loved them at one point. So something has changed, and it's likely because you stopped loving yourself. And I know that was very true for me. So I really appreciate you coming on, helping the people that are profiteers out there that are watching. And I'm going to slightly change the tone here. So right now, there's a lot of political stuff going on and a lot of hate. And I'm very frustrated by it. There are two political leaders, whether you like either one or not, I don't care. But this whole slandering, yelling at each other, saying that, if you believe in this candidate, you're a Nazi. If you believe in this candidate, you're a liberal libtard or whatever. That's crazy talk.
Is your person losing?
We're all human beings. No.
Is your candidate losing?
Not at all. I don't even have a candidate.
Seems like you're getting defensive all of a sudden. Like, I don't know. What are you doing here prefacing this? I'm just saying.
I'm not saying that anyone's losing. What I'm saying is that we all right now are suffering economically. We're all right now worried about our kids, our home, the education system. That's what we should be concentrating on. And we are not, both sides are not that far apart. If we could just, instead of yelling at each other, take a moment and talk to each other, there's a middle ground that is so solid that you will shock yourselves. And I don't know why we've lost that. I don't know why we can't have conversations without the anger and the yelling. But if you're out there, take a moment and listen to someone who disagrees with you. Take a moment and chat with them and actually listen. Listen to don't yell at them. Listen. That's all I'm saying. Anyway, I love y'all. It's great. Like Pat said, there is so much going on. We're exhausted at all times of the day. In fact, my watch told me today, I got a new watch. My watch said that I should not work out today. I'm like, I'm with you, watch. I'm not going to work out today. Anyway.
Mine always says that. Yeah.
Like Caleb said, it's a small step that leads you in the right direction. If it's get up in the morning and make your bed. I'm telling you right now, me coming home to a made bed, it really changed my opinion on the world. It's the weirdest thing when you come home and your house is neat and your bed's made, and it just makes you feel good. Because even if the rest of the day you accomplish nothing, you can walk into your house and feel comfortable. And that's important.
Sound like a liberal.
Let's heal our minds, bodies, and souls together, and never listen to Pat about anything. Caleb, this is where we put you on the line. I'm going to put you in the hot seat right here. So what we like to do now is if there's someone out there right now that's listening, and maybe they're at that point of impact, maybe they're at their burnout point, maybe they're on their way and they just are realizing because they watch this. What's your advice for them? Lead us out.
Success is from the inside out. And until you believe that you're enough, nothing else will change. And not only that, the only permission you need to be yourself is your own. So start there, take some space, check in with yourself. And I think you'll be surprised how much coming back to who you are is going to make you feel so much better about where you're at, where you're going, and just love yourself.
I love it, man. That's awesome.
That's perfect.